We're calling it Sequel Summer, and it's easy to see why.
Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
The Karate Kid, Part 3. Ghostbusters 2.
We'll be calling on some familiar faces to entertain us this summer.
Sequels are brand names. They're the old, reliable products that we've come to know and love.
Indiana Jones has embarked on his third crusade, described as his last.
They're fun movies. The audience likes them. It's an interesting character to play. I like working with George and Stephen. Why not?
That looks great. And movie fans clearly trust those involved.
What are you looking forward to this summer?
The Indiana Jones movie, definitely.
Indiana Jones.
That's it. That and...
the new James Bond movie that's coming out.
Yeah.
License to Kill.
In fact, if one or two movies do well, the others benefit.
Pink Cadillac is going to get a lot of business that will be available simply because people can't get in to see Indiana Jones.
The veterans are hard-pressed to remember when their prospects looked better.
It's astonishing. Company after company after company, the large ones and the small ones, all look very good.
And Batman's chances are considered especially good since he has the advantage of familiarity, yet hasn't been seen lately on the big screen, nor have his enemies.
Wait till they get a load of me.
I think Batman will probably be the biggest film of the summer.
But he'll have plenty of competition because...
extreme situations require extreme measures, okay?
Moviegoers will have a choice of embarking on the third adventure with the Karate Kid and or the fifth, Star Trek aboard the Enterprise.
I think the summer of '89 is going to go down in history as the summer that broke the records. This is going to be the big one. How can we lose with all these sequels?
But sequels aren't the only films available. In fact, the range of films has broadened.
We certainly have gotten away from the old notion that summer is only for teenagers. That you don't have this summer at all.
These are noble pursuits. Poetry, romance, love. These are what we stay alive for.
Robin Williams plays a teacher in Dead Poets Society. In Black Rain, Michael Douglas is
A New York cop on the trail of a killer.
The team from Lethal Weapon is back, but so is Peter Pan.
Here we go!
Something for everyone is what the industry is trying to offer, and if all goes as expected, more than $1 billion could be collected at the box office between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Sadie Kenyon, CNN Entertainment News, Hollywood.
His story shocked the world.
Dr. Jones. Yes?
Pairing a past James Bond with the present Indiana Jones seemed like a good idea to director Steven Spielberg, who cast Sean Connery as Harrison Ford's father for this Last Crusade.
But George Lucas wasn't so enthusiastic. He had a different idea. George wanted somebody more bookish and more Yoda-like.
The final film version of Connery's character combines bookishness with the desire for adventure that would make him a realistic member of Indy's family tree.
And therefore you could get a lot of mileage out of the stunts, and one could still play the father but still be a part of them, and also it's still very much part of the relationship.
You call this archaeology?
Everybody says you don't do much comedy, but I always find the comedy in everything.
Those people are trying to kill us. I know, Dad!
It's a new experience for me. Because it's much more revealing, much more enjoyable, and it's harder. There is something quite comedic about somebody sitting in that sidecar.
It's even funnier in light of recent reports that Connery shot many of his close-ups without pants to keep cooler in the desert heat. He even convinced Harrison Ford to do the same.
Harrison's got quite a sly kind of wit, and mine is a bit more winding people up, which I I did a lot with the young actors in The Untouchables too. And it makes for a sort of rapport on the set.
Now, are you ready to go to work? Where are we going? On a liquor rig.
His role in The Untouchables won him an Oscar and broke him out of the Bond typecasting that had constricted his career.
There is no question that the greatest measure of success regarding one's career is related to James Bond. I don't question these things. What I questioned before was that the limiting factor for me was that I couldn't get on with doing other things that I would want to do because they were so mismanaged and badly planned, and that the people who made them were greedy. The mistakes are all mine because every film I've always had the last word on whether I do it or I don't do it. But in a strange way, the ones that don't make a commercial success somehow have some kind of longevity, and then they become in some way, in some time, valid.
But Connery has no questions about the validity of Indiana Jones and admits if it weren't the Last Crusade, he would gladly do it again. Sherry Sylvester, CNN Entertainment News, Hollywood.
The biggest movie this summer had all the advantages of an original and a sequel. Batman was as familiar a name as any sequel, but it was a completely new movie-going experience.
Batman was a national event. It was a media event. It was something that, if you lived in this country, you had to be there that first weekend. And of course, they sold $40 million of tickets the first weekend.
Batman's box office total has now passed $238 million, and it still has strength left, at least until the anticipated announcement of its imminent home video release. A box office haul of more than $188 million made Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade the #2 summer release, and Lethal Weapon 2 was third with more than $131 million. Both films doing roughly the amount of business expected, but a number of other sequels did not bring in as much money as anticipated.
Star Trek V was a big disappointment, and so was Karate Kid 3. People felt up front these are both sequels, they're bound to perform, but both of them are showing, clear signs of being in trouble.
Your license to kill is revoked.
Also, the James Bond film, License to Kill. The last few Bonds have all done around $50 million domestically. This one won't even do $40 million. It's a big disappointment and casts some question as to whether Timothy Dalton is indeed, the James Bond for the future.
I locked the door on you!
Everybody in the business expected that Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5 was going to be another huge success for New Line Cinema, and it was a dismal failure. It really puts in some question the future, I think, of that series and even perhaps the company, because it's been a one-series company.
And Ghostbusters 2 performed below expectations, but its $110 million take was still good enough to be the 5th grossing summer release. But it was beaten by a surprise hit.
Ross! Nicky!
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids became the first ever Walt Disney picture to gross more than $100 million in its initial domestic release. Has actually passed the $118 million mark. The top 5 films each grossed more than $100 million, more summer films surpassing that mark than ever before, in a summer that totaled more box office dollars than ever before.
It was a $2 billion plus summer. We're still tallying up the final count, but it's going to be over $2 billion, and that's a record.
And that will contribute to what's expected to be a record $5 billion at the movie box office for the entire year. Yes, it's true that ticket prices are up, but movie attendance is up as well, for good reason.
I think this was a big summer because Hollywood made pictures people really wanted to see.
Frank Radis, CNN Entertainment News, Hollywood.